I have a beautiful question by Betsy, and she's asking a few questions. The first question is that she's asking is when I said in the video that after I got to the light, and it was like as if Hashem was telling me, why are you even calling us? So she's asking who's the us. So it's just how I said it in the video. It's basically, I kind of feel, I don't know if to say humble or I don't know the right word, but I feel bad saying that Hashem actually told me, why are you calling me? I just feel, humble by saying why would Hashem even talk to me? So I'm saying, why are you calling us? It's just how I said it in the video. It was basically Hashem telling me directly, why are you even calling me? So maybe I shouldn't have said that in the video, but just to clarify it was literally Hashem talking to me directly and saying to me, why are you calling me? Why? Almost like a parent, that the child did something very bad and the parent is very upset, and then the child says, Dad or Abba, and you're like, why are you even calling me? Right now I'm so upset, I don't want to even talk to you. That's how it was, kind of how it was. And the other question is, she's asking that the angel of death, or how I describe it in the video, the black thing, communicated to me through a thought, and if the thought was overpowering my thoughts, or if it was superimposing on my thoughts. So the thing is like this. Almost imagine in this world, when you walk down the street or in any situation and somebody suddenly calls your name, or forget about calling your name, starts talking to you. Hey, excuse me, can you move your car? Exactly like how you don't have control on anybody around you that starts talking to you, that's exactly how it was. It was like talking to me. Now, since it was in a completely different reality of this world. In this world, the way for us to communicate with each other is through speech. We have a tool. Then we have the mouth as the tool. We have the tongue. We have teeth. We have the whole system in our mouth. We have our throat. That this is basically the tool for us to talk. And the only way to communicate in this world is through talking. Some people maybe have mental telepathy and they can read each other's thoughts, but that's 1 out of a billion. Most people in this world communicate through talking. So we have a few tools to use that communications. We have our ears to hear it, we have our mouth to talk, etc., etc. But the only way to communicate is through talking. Okay, some people maybe communicate from sign languages. There's different ways to communicate, but in general, the way to communicate in this world is through talking. And this corresponds only to this world, when we have a body. When the soul leaves the body, it does not have a mouth, and it does not have ears, and it does not have a sound. So the only way to communicate is in a level of a thought. What's explained in Hasidic philosophy or Kabbalah or many different books, at the level of machshava. There's 3 garments to the soul: machshava, dibur, ve'maaseh. Thought, speech, and deed. Thought is a very, very, very refined garment. Speech already is corresponding to our body, and deed, maaseh, that's already completely has to do with our body. But the level of machshava, the garment of machshava, is a way to how the souls or anything in a spiritual being communicates. So it's almost like the thoughts that we have, because the thoughts that we have are not physical. You can't grasp the thought, you can't touch the thought, but the thought all the time is running in our head. So the same level that the thought, even right now in this world, how we think all day long, it's a spiritual thing. It's not a tangible thing. You can't touch a thought, you can't see a thought, but we still have the thought. So in the same level of that spiritual thinness of communication, so the same way that's how the communication was. And the same way that a person will just scream at you in the middle of the street and you have no control over the screaming, that's exactly how it was. It was like talking to me, or referring to me, or screaming at me. I didn't have any control over it. So for sure it was overpowering my thoughts, kind of comparing apples to apples, how you walk in the street and somebody screams at you, and you have no control over that person screaming, exactly how it was, but in a level of a thought. And if it was superimposing on me, it was beyond superimposing on me. It like captured me. It was like it had control over me completely. I didn't have any control. I felt like I couldn't even move. I felt like I'm completely crushed by this angel of death, not the thought, that being. It felt like 100,000 pounds is sitting on me and I can't even move. And the thought was much more powerful than me. So it was louder than me, it was stronger than me, and it was more powerful than me. So of course it superimposed me, but I still had my own thoughts. It wasn't that it was controlling my thoughts. On the contrary, my thoughts were me. It was still me. But it was like much more powerful. Almost like you'll go into a situation that somebody starts yelling at you, and you're trying to defend yourself, and it's yelling so strong and so powerful that it's completely overpowering and shutting you down. But it didn't of course it superimposed me. It was much more powerful than me, and it was definitely, controlling me. But I still had my own thoughts. It was just it was overpowering me. So kind of to make it the most understandable, it was almost like as if like in this world somebody will talk to me, scream at me, refer to me, and I have no control over it, and I can answer, but I have no control over it, and kind of the same. Imagine it in a spiritual way, more in a thought, and it's a very very hard concept to explain and to understand. But just imagine how all day long constantly you have thoughts, which is some kind of a level of communication. And imagine you would be able to communicate with other beings through that thought. Imagine right now you would look at your friend and you would think, instead of saying, "How are you?" you would think, "How are you?" And he will hear that thought and answer, "Thank you." So this is like a level of communication that we can't really understand because we can't do it. We're not in that level. But once the soul is removed from the body, and there's no physical barrier, then the only way to communicate is in those thoughts. And that's kind of how the souls communicate, in a level of a thought, a level of machshava. And the angel of death, the only way it was, not the only way, but one of the ways it was communicating is in that same level of thought. And as powerful as the brain is, as powerful as the thought is, that's how powerful it was. Almost like kind of try to imagine something controlling your thoughts and like driving you crazy. Imagine like a person who's like losing his mind, and something is controlling his thoughts and like completely driving him insane in his mind. That's kind of like how it was, but magnified to a point that it was like literally felt like me. I still had my own entity, but it was controlling me. So I know it's a very hard thing to kind of explain, and even more so to understand. So I hope I made sense and it's a little bit more clear now. If it's not so clear, then please feel free to ask again.